You're standing at the edge of a river in Africa. A lion is drinking on one bank. A crocodile is floating on the other. Two of the deadliest animals on Earth, 10 feet apart. You brace for it. You wait for the fight. It never comes. The lion finishes drinking. The crocodile sinks back underwater. Nothing happens. That's strange, right? Two apex killers, zero blood. Most people assume the strongest predators are locked in some endless turf war. Lion versus tiger, shark versus orca, a constant battle for the top spot. But that's not what actually happens in nature, not even close. In 2019, marine biologist Salvador Jorgensen tracked 165 great white sharks off the coast of California. And he found something nobody expected. The ocean's most feared predator runs away every single time. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why almost every apex predator on the planet follows the same secret rule. A rule that's been quietly running your life too. Stay till the end. The last part will change how you see every conflict you've ever avoided. So let's start with the basics. What actually makes something an apex predator? It's simple. Nothing hunts them. As an adult, they sit at the very top of the food chain. No natural enemy, no one above them. You'd think that means total confidence, total dominance, fear nothing, fight anything. But here's what's fascinating. Being at the top doesn't make an animal reckless, it makes it careful. Think about it from the animal side for a second. Every single day is a math problem. Calories in, calories out. Injury risk versus reward. A lion doesn't have health insurance. A shark doesn't have a hospital. In the wild, there is no emergency room, no stitches, no antibiotics. A broken leg isn't a bad day, it's a death sentence. So what killed more apex predators throughout history? Rival species, or their own bodies breaking down after taking unnecessary risks? Science points hard toward the second one. Here's the wild part. The same instincts that make a predator good at killing prey also make it terrified of getting hurt itself. A hunt against a gazelle is calculated, fast, precise. Low risk if it goes wrong, you just miss and try again tomorrow. A fight against another apex predator is a different kind of gamble entirely. Even the winner limps away wounded, and a wounded apex predator can't hunt. And an apex predator that can't hunt starves. So evolution did something clever. It didn't make top predators braver, it made them smarter about avoidance. This is where it gets specific. Picture Sub-Saharan Africa, one patch of savanna. 5 different apex and near apex hunters trying to survive in the exact same space. Lions, leopards, cheetahs, spotted hyenas, African wild dogs. If they all fought for the same territory the same way at the same time, half of them would be dead within a season. Instead, something remarkable happens. They split the world up without a single meeting, without a single vote. Just instinct, generation after generation, quietly rearranging the map. Lions rule the ground during the cooler hours, so leopards adapt. They become climbers. They drag their kills straight up into trees, out of reach, just to avoid losing the meal, or their life, to a lion or a pack of hyenas. Cheetahs go a different direction entirely. They hunt in the blazing heat of midday. The exact hours lions are too lazy and too hot to bother moving. It's not the ideal hunting time, but it's the safest one. And wild dogs? They're smaller than all of them. So instead of competing head-on, they run, constantly, covering enormous distances just to stay out of lion territory altogether. Nobody drew these boundaries. There's no treaty, just thousands of years of the ones who avoided conflict living long enough to pass that instinct forward. Researchers actually have a name for this, niche partitioning. And it's not just about space, it's about time itself. In parts of the Americas, jaguars and pumas share almost identical territory. Same prey, same terrain, same size range. So what stops them from colliding constantly? The clock. Jaguars lean toward daylight hours. Pumas shift toward the night. Two apex predators sharing one patch of forest, essentially working different shifts. It's a timeshare. Neither animal planned it. Their ancestors' survival did. But nothing shows this rule more perfectly than what happened off the coast of California. Imagine you're floating near the Farallon Islands, just off San Francisco. Every fall, great white sharks gather here, some over 18 feet long. This is their turf, their hunting ground for young elephant seals. On an average season, researchers counted around 40 kills right around this island. For years, everyone assumed nothing in these waters challenged them. Then Jorgensen's team started noticing something in the tagging data. On certain days, every single shark vanished, all at once. And they wouldn't come back, not for weeks. Sometimes not for an entire year. What was scaring off the ocean's most feared hunter? Killer whales. Not even attacking, just passing through. The moment orcas entered the area, the sharks didn't wait around to test who was tougher. Electronic tags showed some sharks fleeing within minutes of an orca simply showing up, even when the orcas only stuck around for less than an hour. And once the sharks left, shark-driven seal kills in that zone dropped by more than half. Sometimes to nearly zero. 2 apex predators, same prey, same water, and one of them just leaves immediately. No standoff, no test of strength, just an instant, total retreat. Scientists still aren't fully sure if the sharks are afraid of literally becoming prey or if they just refuse to compete for the same meal against something built like a torpedo with teeth. But either way, the message is the same. Even the ocean's apex hunter has decided some fights simply aren't worth having. But sometimes, splitting by time isn't even necessary. Sometimes the world itself gets split in half. Think about a tiger and a crocodile sharing the same river system. On paper, that sounds like the ultimate showdown. In reality, it's almost a non-event. The tiger owns the land. The crocodile owns the water. One breathes air and stalks through grass. The other waits, submerged, barely a ripple on the surface. They're not enemies, they're neighbors who simply never show up to the same meeting. This is resource partitioning, a different flavor of the same rule. Instead of splitting the clock, they split the map by element itself, land versus water. 2 entirely different battlefields, occupied by 2 entirely different killers, with almost no overlap at all. And here's the part that should really get under your skin. This isn't a conscious decision. No tiger ever thought, I'll avoid the water so I don't have to deal with crocodiles. This behavior got baked into the species itself, generation after generation, because the individuals who ignored that boundary didn't live long enough to pass their genes forward. You're looking at millions of years of trial and error, except the trials that failed didn't get a do-over. So what did they actually do for all those hours when they weren't fighting? They watched, they tracked, they learned the schedule of every other predator in their territory. The way you'd learn a coworker's habits without ever having a conversation about it. Camera trap studies have caught this happening in real time. Researchers monitoring competing predator species found something almost eerie. The animals weren't just avoiding each other by accident. They were adjusting day by day, based on where the competition had been seen most recently. Almost like reading a shared invisible calendar that nobody wrote down. That's not luck, that's calculation. Running on pure instinct. But that's only half the story. Splitting territory and splitting time still doesn't fully explain something. What happens the rare moment 2 apex predators actually do come face to face? Not near each other, not sharing a river, actually standing in the same clearing at the same moment, with nowhere left to retreat to. Even then, most of the time, nothing happens. Researchers who study these encounters describe something almost like a silent negotiation. A long stare, a stiffened posture, ears back, muscles tensed, every signal of readiness on display. And then, more often than not, one of them simply turns and walks away. It looks like a standoff. It's actually a conversation. Every twitch of muscle, every angle of the body is information. I could win this, but I don't want to pay for it. Do you? Most of the time, both sides read the exact same answer in each other. Not worth it. And they part ways without a single drop of blood spilled. This is the part that surprises people most. The size of the teeth, the strength of the jaw, None of that is what prevents the fight. It's the shared, silent understanding that violence between equals rarely produces a clean winner. Just two damaged animals and one empty stretch of forest that neither of them controls any better than before. So here's the question underneath all of this. If direct conflict is this dangerous, this costly, this rare, why does it ever happen at all? Because sometimes the math changes. When food gets scarce enough, when territory gets tight enough, the risk of starving can become worse than the risk of fighting. That's when you start seeing lions actually killing leopard cubs, wolves killing coyotes. The rare, brutal exception that proves just how strong the avoidance instinct usually is. These conflicts aren't the norm. They're the last resort, a sign that the system of avoidance has already broken down. But even then, notice what almost never happens. You don't see two apex predators squaring off in a fair, prolonged battle just to prove who's stronger. What you see instead is ambush, opportunity. A predator picking off the vulnerable young of a rival, then leaving immediately, rather than staying to fight an adult on equal footing. Even the exception follows the rule. Minimize the risk. Take the smallest possible fight. Get out fast. Compare that to how we usually picture apex predator battles. Two titans locked in combat, neither backing down, until one finally falls. That image barely exists in nature. It exists mostly in documentaries, edited for drama, and in your imagination. The truth is quieter, less cinematic, and honestly, a lot more impressive once you understand what's actually happening underneath it. Which brings us to the real reason this story keeps showing up in ecosystem after ecosystem, species after species. Apex predators didn't get to the top by being the most aggressive. They got there by being the best at knowing exactly which battles to skip. And that's not really a story about lions or sharks. It's a story about you. Every single day, you're making the exact same calculation, whether you notice it or not. The argument you don't start. The confrontation you quietly walk away from. The fight that isn't worth the damage it would do to everything else you're trying to protect. We call that being the bigger person. Nature just calls it survival math. Think about the last time you backed down from something you could have technically won. A comment you let go, a door you didn't slam, a rival you simply stopped competing with, not because you were scared, but because it just wasn't worth what it would cost you. That wasn't weakness. That was a lion choosing not to swim toward a crocodile it didn't need to fight. You do this more than you realize. At work, when you let a disagreement go instead of turning it into a battle for status. At home, when you choose the quiet exit over the argument that would prove nothing. Every one of those moments is the exact same calculation a shark makes the instant it senses an orca nearby. Not a retreat, a recalibration. The apex predators that filled our nightmares, the ones we imagine locked in constant, brutal war, spend almost their entire existence doing everything possible to never actually collide. They didn't build empires by fighting every rival they encountered. They built them by knowing, instantly, which fights would cost more than they could ever win back. Strength was never about being willing to fight everyone. It was about being strong enough to know you don't have to.